I want to think about the nature of the afterlife, the resurrected life today. And I'm going to use two examples from John's Gospel to kind of compare and contrast. And the one is the raising of Lazarus, which is in John chapter 11. And then there is the resurrection of Jesus. Now, by the way, the same Greek word, we kind of contrast them because we can tell they're different. It's the same anastasis, it's the same Greek word. But let's look at Lazarus first, and then we'll think about Jesus. The interesting thing about the resurrection of Lazarus is it's very much a reinstatement of him into his former life. So he was there, he died, and then there's this physicality of description, the idea that there's a stench in the tomb, but he comes back to life and is very much him. So in John chapter 12, we see him reclining at table alongside the other guests at Mary and Martha's house. He is restored very much back into his body. And in my experience of people who are grieving, that's what they actually want. If they could kind of choose, they would have their loved one back as they were. They want that time with them as they remembered that person. And on an individual level, I utterly relate to that. I can really understand why people want it. I think also, if you step back, we all might recognize that that's not... If that were going to happen, and everyone could just be restored back in kind of forever, this planet, this Earth, wouldn't make sense. I mean, everyone would just keep popping back in, and there'd be huge overpopulation. I mean, where would you keep... It's one thing having, children, 3 generations alive at a time, 4 generations, but if you have, 16 generations alive at the same time, there'd be no space for anyone, there'd be no understanding of human life. The whole thing would change and be a bit unreal. So I think on a big picture, we know that the Lazarus model can't be right, even though that plays very strongly to our deepest desires. And I wonder almost that it's included in the gospel for that reason, to say, yeah, this is what it could be like. But that's not how it is for Jesus. And so you've got this model of Lazarus who comes back to life and sort of slots back into his own life. And then Jesus, who is killed young, but when he comes back to life, he's not quite the same. So do you remember Mary, when she recognizes him in the garden, she reaches out to him and he says, don't cling on to me. And she maybe clung on to him before in his earthly life, but now there's a sense that it's different. His risenness is still really Jesus, but his risenness is slightly different. Now, who's the model for our future life? It's much more Jesus, I think, than Lazarus. That yes, you will recognize the people who you knew before, but it will be quite different. And I think we perhaps don't take that seriously enough. I see people a lot at a time of grief because they help them plan funerals and stuff like that. And my suspicion is that if they were, look, for some people that there is no afterlife, it's just you're in the ground, that's it. But a lot of people think there is, and the way they refer to it, though, I think is worth reflecting on. It feels a little bit like when their mum dies, that they think their mum will be in a sort of lounge of a residential home, having a cup of tea, or like a golf club or something, waiting for the husband, the wife, the son to join them, their friends. And it's a sort of low-key, kind of quite peaceful type old people's home type thing. It sort of feels like they've got in their mind. People say to them, well, I'll be joined by mum now, or she'll be waiting for dad, or something like that. And I think, yeah, there is a recognition there will be a recognition of people we know, but that plays a bit more like to the Lazarus type resurrection, that you slot back into as you were before. And I don't think that's likely to be the case. I think the model for the resurrected life is Jesus, not Lazarus. But my sense is that people tend to think of it more like Lazarus than Jesus. Now, of course, who knows? Who knows about the next life? I mean, this is big stuff, and no one's talking with feeling, with certainty. But I wonder if we should just probe a little bit about our expectations of what the next life is like, and just think, well, remember, Jesus' body wasn't the same, So it's not going to be the same for